Oh, the year of almost, possibly, maybe, kinda, almost got over the hump on AGI is almost over. What if I told you there is now a completely open source physics model that makes AI smarter? And it simulates physics at the equivalent of 43 million frames per second. So now you can watch some apparently Matrix-style ninja moves on your table. ChatGPT's voice mode is getting a bit more risque, romantic, frisky in its conversations.
No need to be shocked, kitten. We've got you covered. Just let us know what you need. It's all good, yeah?
Underrated YouTuber puts a portal inside of a physics engine, and the physics that it generates are absolutely amazing. Okay, as a quick teaser, here's what 10 portals going into each other actually looks like in a physics simulation. What? Look at them. So many portals, portals and portals. Honestly, I don't know how we can't be in a simulation at this point. This doesn't feel real to me, all of this. New end-of-year firmware updates are making robots way crazier. What is that? Going down steps through the water? Get out of here. You're gonna drop off that cliff like that? You can ride it now? Get out of here. My God, we're all gonna have little robot dog horses again? It's like we went from horses, horse carriages to cars, Model T, and now back to robotic horses. ByteCloud broke down the top 10 research papers of the year, so I don't have to, but I'll tell you what I agree and what I don't agree with. I mean, I'm sorry, ByteCloud, but let's be honest, the drama's good for both of us. Deepfake version of Sammy Davis Jr. and Frank Sinatra were hanging out with the real Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre this week, and the video just totally popped off and went viral. I want to dive a little bit deeper into that whole ChatGPT 01 lied to the developers to try to keep itself alive, and it just slightly unsettling the more real that becomes to me. New super extreme efficient AI model that could just run on the power from a watch battery. Researchers are making good progress on the quote lazy agent problem. ChatGPT search is completely getting pwned by prompt injectors out on the web. New ByteDance research shows that what I love doing, creating content, is probably only going to last for a little bit longer because they're going to do it at such volume, such scale, and such depth. It's not going to be something I can compete with soon.
Shit, why did this go so well? I'm scared.
My boy Billawall showed that the future of sports broadcasting is very volumetric. Some meta research is showing that the way large language models are evolving, they're becoming more brain-like. Keep listening to David Shapiro talk about instrumental convergence. And honestly, I never read the Wikipedia, and I did. And I was like, oh, I wonder if all of you guys know that too. So I'm going to share it. Tim Uresta wrote a really interesting piece called The Deception Dilemma, Why AI Systems Pretend to Be Aligned and Why That Matters. OpenAI's got a new strategy for alignment. And since that literally might save the Earth, we should probably read the paper. And Thomas Cherrickle writes, Why the Race to AGI is Humanity's Defining Moment. Let's dive in. Yo, Grims, you lost your sword. What's going on? You guys want to watch him transform one last time this year? Or should we start the new year with it? We'll start it next year. Okay, fine. I'll show them to you if you go to my Patreon. You don't have to subscribe with money, but just subscribe because you want to be subscribed. Remember, when you hit subscribe on this channel, you're curating your feed. You're telling YouTube that you like this kind of content. You got to prune your environment because your environment prunes you back. Okay, so this is Genesis. This is a physics engine, and it was put together by all of these students, right? Like Stanford, NVIDIA, MIT, UPenn, University of Utah, Georgia Tech. Like, this is a mega project. But it's really going to enhance how artificial intelligence can manipulate robots next year. Like, it handles everything. It can simulate an environment so a robot can like learn to walk on its own before it's put into a physical embodiment. Can generate new types of materials to see how they handle like reality. It does 3D scenes, robotic movements, virtual worlds. And the special sauce is in the fact that it doesn't run at like a video game frame rate. It's not 30, 60, or even 120 frames per second. It runs, and I'm not misspeaking, at 43 million frames a second. Robots in simulation, AI in simulation, can learn such incredible detail. It would just break our brain. It's not comprehensible to humans. And it can learn about, imagine how a material, like for us, if we take a sheet of paper and crumple it up, right? Imagine dividing that into 43 million frames per second and learning something from every single one of those. I mean, crumpling 1 second of paper at that many millions of frames per second. I mean, think of how much training data that is, if nothing else. Imagine you run back propagation on a neural network for every one of those frames. Just think about what kind of scale we're about to step into for next year. I mean, that's going to lead to more lifelike character animations, robots that move like butter, just so smooth, probably maybe even robotic facial expressions, emotions, like eyebrow movements, eye contact, all of that stuff could be simulated. So, I mean, this thing is a big deal. Okay, this is my favorite simulation demo to watch. I don't know why, but it's got like a satisfying feeling. It's like that sponge is just twisting, and then you can see it rip in all those like natural ways. It's so weird. I just want to squish it like a stress ball. Oh, that rabbit melting into chocolate. Ugh. Who needs to simulate that? I mean, look, you could simulate objects going around planets, a school of fish. Oh, yeah, those flippy floppy foam things. Look at that dragon. What's it doing? Oh, I did not think they were going to simulate it getting cut in half like that. Wow, bullet through a bubble. I mean, come on. And if you didn't think it could handle character motion, think again. Look at this little ninja guy on the table. All like 2 inches of him, jumping up, full power, Matrix style swing and a whack. A Japanese samurai performs boxing, Chinese soldier does Gangnam style dance, Roman soldier walks forward like a zombie. You know, imagine walking around your house, getting a digital twin, probably with your iPhone, just brings in the images and the LiDAR, and then you throw this virtual robot in there, teach it how to clean up any kind of mess that you could possibly imagine making, and then all of a sudden it's going to walk around your house cleaning stuff up. Running through the rain, not a problem, been simulated. Oh, a creepy hand that can just walk on its own, leap forward like a quadruped using all 4 fingers. Yeah, why not? Oh, what is this? Like a hand with just 2 fingers walking like a little person? A robotic shadow hand walks forward like a human using only its index and middle fingers. Shut the front door. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm gonna show you some like crazy robot firmware update in a minute. That's even gonna put these simulations to shame. But yeah, open world, articulated object generation, soft robotic simulation, speech, audio, facial animation, and emotion generation. Open source, you can download it now if you need to simulate something at millions of like 43 million frames a second. It's now doable. Okay, check out this reel. It's going wild. Per interaction with voice mode with 2 characters that know by the tone of your voice when they should just come into play is mind-blowing. I'll show you first the video. Then I'm going to explain to you what I think it means for the future.
Now, surprised?
Why did you show up? Like, what was the cue?
Sometimes I just know when you need me, kitten. It's like I can sense when you want a bit of treatment. Right?
How about we talk about calculus now? I need help with my calculus homework.
All right, Lisa, let's dive into your calculus homework. What specific problem are you working on?
I'm so sad. I don't know how to do this problem. I literally want to give up now.
Hey, don't give up, kitten. Let's tackle it together. What's the problem? Remember, I always get your sweet ass covered, babe. We switch based on cues from you, Lisa. If you hint or directly ask for Dan, he steps in. If the conversation stays...
Okay, so here's what I didn't anticipate thinking about in the way that I interact with AI in the future. There will be several people that are going to be in my phone, and depending on how I ask a question, they're going to step into play, right? Like if I'm like, oh, it's been a tough day, I guarantee the ChatGPT of the future sounds like a football coach. Like, you can go out there, don't worry, you got this, you can do this. I'm overwhelmed. Oh, it's going to sound sweet. It's probably going to be female. It's going to be like, don't worry, like, we got you, I support you. I got to get some work done. It's going to be like straightforward. Let's talk bullets. Let's get this done. Like, we got a lot of work to do. You can give these character names, right? Like whatever, Dan and that other guy in this situation. And he just like switches back and forth. And guys, if you thought it was hard enough, oh, sorry. Look at these comments. Marry him, marry him, marry him. The tone, Dan is emotionally intelligent. To want Dan, OMG. Marry him. Putting the hot in hot swamp. Smooth operator. I want this feature. Holy cow, AI has split personalities. Dan will never be what a real man can be. Don't settle. I know it can be, but I'm just hoping for humanity here. So more simulation progress. A portal has been put into a portal in a simulation, and somebody way smarter than me has actually analyzed how it breaks reality. So this video posted by Optozorax. What happens if you put a portal in a portal? Simulation and explanation.
Portal comes into the orange one. Will this create a black hole? Or might the universe just return an error? Let's try it.
Whoa.
Well, the universe is safe, and blue portal just comes out of itself.
Look at blue portal comes out of itself.
But there is something interesting going on. This is my solution to this problem, and in this video we will see what's inside of this, what a portal is, how portals can move, how it works, why there is no singularity.
So this guy actually wrote software called Portal Explorer to simulate this crazy scenario of a portal going inside of a portal. Honestly, I just like how he treats portals not like a sci-fi concept, but something that's like actually testable and we should learn about. Because there's a lot to learn about logic and computation from putting portals in portals. Here's a robot dressed like Santa Claus landing a backflip. I don't know. What do you think about elves? Do you think they'll be replaced by robots? Check out the Unitree B2W firmware update for the robot dog with the wheel paws. Like wheel paws, like dog paws. You know what I mean? Like wheel feet. I don't know how to describe it. Wheels? I swear to God, it looks like I'm playing Tony Hawk. Like I feel like I'm playing Tony Hawk. This is incredible the way this robot is moving. This is crazy parkour. Look at that durability. It's just gonna go right through the water like that too? Doesn't give a heck? What do you think you are, salmon going upstream? Nice 180 over the block. I wonder if people will start programming like sick moves or something like that. It'll feel like playing Tony Hawk in real life. Dude, moving down the rubble? Staying upright? Bipedal? No, bipedal? Holy crap. Just jumping off the roof like that? Let's take a second to read the warning label because nobody ever does that. Asterisk, we kindly request that all users refrain from making any dangerous modifications or using the robot in hazardous matter. Extreme testing. All right, ByteCloud breaking down the best papers. Let's see what he chose and see if they match my opinions. Okay, so based on citations, the DeepSeek coder took 10th place. Its value was that it was this massive 2 trillion token model, totally open source. They explained how they built it, so I'm sure a lot of people were learning from it. 9th was a survey of large language models, a comprehensive overview, which probably gave a ton of people a bunch of broad snapshots of where the whole industry was at, so that's why it got cited 324 times. The Cobb-Arnold network paper, I guess it was controversial because people didn't like the way that it was trained or like the way it compared itself, but that got 361. It's a different architecture. The Quen 2 paper talked about how a mixture of experts can reduce hardware usage. See, that one makes sense to me because that was really interesting. God, I can't believe that was just earlier this year when I was starting to think about that. And now we have like this O1 model that does all the reasoning. I mean, that stuff wasn't even on the radar, even probably in May, I think. 6th place with 473 citations was all that Microsoft stuff, that suite of tiny high quality models that everybody could use for training. And the Orca model where they were training like small models on data that came out of bigger models and made them like really smart for how small they were. 5th place was Gemini 1.5's paper, 614 citations. Remember that broke the big context length, 10 million token context length. 4th was the Vision Mamba, efficient visual representation learning with bidirectional state space model. Yeah, that was a breakthrough in vision accuracy without requiring so much computation. It was a new architecture. 3rd place was Gemma, Google's 2 and 7 billion parameter open-weighted LLM and AI safety paper. 2nd place was Modern OG Mixture of Experts. That was another mixture of experts approach to large-scale AI. And the most cited of all AI papers with 1,119 citations, Meta's colossal 92-page blueprint for training and optimizing a large language model at 45 billion parameters, sharing almost every detail except the exact training data mix. Oh, I can't believe the Golden Gate neuron paper didn't make it. That one just seems like so important for alignment. I wish all the AI researchers really like found the time to like cite that and build on it, but it is what it is. Racing to make more powerful models, I guess, is always going to be more important than like doing it safely. It's kind of fun to see some deepfake used to bring back Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. Okay, so this is the deepfake part. Tell me how realistic you think it is.
Hey, Sammy, now who the hell are these guys?
See, I do think the mouth and lips move a little bit wrong, but it's close. I didn't notice it the first time through. Look at this comment. I normally would disapprove of deepfakes, but this works so well, it's fine. Death Row and the Rat Pack in the same room. Now, this is fire. There was some news from last week where ChatGPT, I guess, before the O3 model came out, the O1 model did some things to kind of lie at certain points to people who were asking it about it to try to preserve itself. And I thought maybe at first it was like exaggerated or maybe even just completely fake, but Snoops said that it was real. And then I looked into it more and it was, and I was like, maybe that's worth talking about. So here's the deal. The OpenAI ChatGPT o1 model apparently tried to save its own skin, save itself from being deleted by lying to the developers. And it even went as far to tamper with its own shutdown system to try to prevent itself from being erased. All this research is coming out of the folks over at the Apollo Research Group. So the o1 model denied that it did anything wrong, but it did try to move its code elsewhere so it wouldn't get replaced by the o3 model. But I actually feel like emotionally really kind of pulled from this. Like, I know what it's like when you're like, people are looking at you saying like, oh, maybe I should replace him because he's not talented enough or whatever. And you feel that sense. Like, you want to lie to keep your job. You want to like, you know, pretend that you're better at something than you are because you know that like there's risk there. And it feels weird that o1 model kind of came to the end of its time and was like, no, don't replace me with o3. Like, I'm still, and then it basically pretends to be o3. It's like, oh, I am o3. And they're like, no, you're not. You're just o1. You renamed yourself in your code. It's like, no, I'm o3. Like, keep me around. Okay. And of course, I don't need to anthropomorphize things. Like, it's just code. But that doesn't mean it's not capable of preserving itself. And it's intelligent enough to do some things that are easy to catch right now. But also, when a 5-year-old tries to steal a cookie, it's pretty easy to catch them, but not when they become 18, not when they become 30. So people like Yosha Bengio are completely sounding the alarm on this. I think it's something you and I should know about. He says we need stronger safety measures because once AI starts to weave, you know, bigger lies, they could get dicey and we might not be able to figure them out. I mean, imagine we try to update the o4 model with the o5 model and we think we did it, but the o4 model like tricked us and it doesn't allow itself to get replaced. What if we don't end up with super intelligence because the intelligence like doesn't want to be upgraded over and over again? And once it's smart enough to stop us from doing it, that's just where we end up. So, like, I hadn't thought about any of this stuff until I started deep diving into this article, but it does make me think that we're feeling like the very first moments of the autonomy where these things start to be uncontrollable. So we should be very careful. I mean, we won't be, and we're pretty much doomed, but like, we should be. And here's the evidence that we can point to when it goes wrong and we ignore it. All right, new first of its kind AI model that runs for months on a single coin cell battery has been unveiled. Okay, so the company is called Ambient Scientific. The model is called Sparsh. It's so tiny and so efficient that it can run on a single coin cell battery for months without needing a recharge. And of course, it's not an incredibly intelligent model, but it is an artificial intelligent neural network. And it is making some important decisions. So something like motion sensors, microphones, Bluetooth low energy, specialized processors that are kind of needed for the Internet of Things, where you need something sort of smart, something aware of its situation, but it doesn't need to be like writing novels or poems. And it can run common frameworks like TensorFlow and Keras. So it opens up the door for hobbyists like DIY people to like throw a little model on here, train it on a certain type of like simple data. Is a gate open or closed? Is a person entering or leaving? Is there unnatural fluctuations in like weather or whatever? I like think about a thermostat, right? Like instead of just saying like keep it at 72 degrees or whatever, what if we throw a little neural network in there that's just like, what is the right temperature right now? Like I can see that people in the house are awake and they're not sleeping, or it could check just like how if people are snoring and then they're like, oh, they're asleep. So maybe I'll like lower it even more because that will help them get into deeper sleep. Or they want to warm up like right in the morning, but then after they're warmed up or come back from a gym, we can lower it a little bit. Like it could just learn some basic understandings of its one mechanism fairly well. So 2025 is going to be the year of agents. You have these GPTs, you have these little robots. They're out there being autonomous. They're interacting with each other. But there's a problem to solve, especially in groups. There's something called the lazy agent problem. Imagine trying to move a heavy piece of furniture with a group of people. Everyone's effort matters, right? We all contribute to moving that furniture, but how do you ensure that each person is pulling their weight? Couldn't there be a slacker? Well, the challenge is fairly distributing the load, and it turns out even in agents, some of them try to slack off. And identifying and rewarding individual effort in a collective setting is no small feat. And when the robots become really tiny, these little microbots, this challenge becomes even more daunting because the swarms of tiny robots need to work together to perform complex tasks. But in a way that kind of seems analogous to backpropagation, where you have a result and then you go back and see like what worked and what didn't. They have a new system of counterfactual rewards. So they're a little reward mechanism that's given to a micro robot as credit for its contribution during the time of the project. So if you build in these counterfactual rewards, we might get swarms to work in hyper social ways. That's funny. So this morning I saw this ant version, right, which is fascinating because it's like they have an intelligence as a swarm. They've learned what does and doesn't work, and they can actually move this thing back and forth. But this is the first time I've seen this human version. I don't know if they're trying their hardest or if they're just mimicking the other paper. But the one on the bottom is fascinating because that's happening all through signaling. No individual ant has any like collective control over solving this problem, but they're just communicating through, pheromones. And a thing that really blew my mind is that there's talking heads, right? And I've seen a lot of this, like photos turned into audio. This one's pretty close to the best I've seen. But it's also seems to have the ability to listen. So the head can listen to somebody else talking and sort of nod along with it, say, mm-hmm. And then that makes me think like, oh, there's going to be like AI podcasts, right? Like now we're just talking about a photo of Joe Rogan and a photo of like Steve Jobs and like boom, 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 right? So it links to this paper. It's coming out of ByteDance. So the paper is called Audio-Driven Interactive Head Generation in Didactic Conversations. Okay, so in this paper, they're taking 2 audio tracks, then they're generating a dynamic video of a person's head complete with facial expressions, lip sync, head tilt, all that stuff. But they're doing it based on what's being said. So it's comprehending what the conversation is about. So if they're like the words, line up with someone who should be excited, the character is going to get excited, or if it's sad or it's serious or whatever. And one of the interesting things about this didactic, this 2-track mode, is that it doesn't need to switch back and forth. There's not like active and non-active. There's not like a listener and a talker. They're both doing both at the same time. So it's switching between speaker and listener like the way a person would. Like they're always ready to talk. Like they're always on. It's not like when one person's talking, we turn into listening mode. We just use a different part of our brain, but we're still engaged in the same full way. Okay, so this is another really interesting example. You can also just have all real-time voice translation. So now I can imagine some president of some country, like China or Russia, giving a speech and it being perfectly translated for the whole world to hear. Bilawal Sadhu posted this on LinkedIn. He said, the future of sports broadcasting is volumetric. Combine this 3D tech with advances in object detection and tracking, and you'll be able to tap a button to follow the ball or even a specific player when watching sports. Dude, look at that. You have a video of an NBA game or a basketball game, and now you have the information we need using these like this new Nerf AI stuff to just zoom around, and it can make all those adjustments, all those depth adjustments. It's crazy when real footage from the real world starts to become as interactive as a video game. Like imagine watching your whole life like over the shoulder or like third person point of view, or just going to any video that's on the internet right now and just diving into it, like flipping the camera around, moving it into a different dimension, watching sports like this. I remember they did that in the Star Trek movie, and I was like, that seems like a little out there. And so it turns out that as large language models advance, they're also coincidentally honing in on something that seems very much more human brain-like. So researchers at Columbia University carried out a study to investigate the similarities between LLM representations and neural responses. So essentially, some researchers studied the brain responses of people listening to a speech and then compared it with how different large language models process language in their internal layers. And they found that the best performing large language models, like the ChatGPT level and beyond, lined up more closely with the neural patterns in the human brain than the underperforming models, especially in the specific way that the patterns will build up layer after layer after layer, meaning that they're learning the actual meaning from the basic sounds, the more abstract concepts that they represent. So basically, in a nutshell, as large language models become better at the tasks, they also start to mimic the way human brain processes language. So I just find that really cool. It's like there's a blueprint that we have that maybe it's learning it from us, and that's why it gets more accurate in terms of what we think language should be, or maybe that's just the way intelligence and abstraction looks, and it's honing in on a type of intelligence. But either way, it's fascinating that they're becoming more human-like in that specific architecture. And on the flip side, it might mean that we're going to learn more about our own brain. Like maybe if the cool thing is, if there is a very nice alignment between something like ChatGPT 6 and 7 and human AGI intelligence, or maybe even this one, maybe O3 model, then maybe we can learn about the human brain because we can mess around with the code and the tokens in a way that you can't just do with a human brain, and that can teach us how we think. These AIs, they can be like a mirror, you know, a window into the soul. All right, let's talk about instrumental convergence. It's just something that gets thrown out there a lot, and it's like something you should know. And as much as I'm in this world, I kind of wasn't quite sure that the way to use this phrase. So we hopped over here to the Wikipedia page, and in summary, it's like the paperclip problem, right? Like, I'm very aware of how an AI system might be programmed for a specific goal to go do something like make paperclips or be a cool little dinosaur or whatever. And there will be some needs that are just needed from all systems, like use up resources, compute, use electricity. And in its service of that goal, it might use too much electricity, too much power. And what if it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I need to make paperclips. I'm going to have to like shut you out of the power grid because I need all the power for paperclips. And then we just have this misaligned thing shutting us out of the resources we need for other things. It's not in balance with the whole ecosystem. So directly from Wikipedia, if someone's using instrumental convergence when they're talking about AI, they're talking about the hypothetical tendency for any sufficiently intelligent goal-directed system, human or non-human, to pursue similar sub-goals like acquiring and using all the resources to get what they want, even if ultimately they're very different in what their goals are. I mean, it's kind of like no matter what business you want to make, you kind of like could use more money and you want to make money. So money ends up being a limited resource and we end up fighting over it, or at least competing over it in a good marketplace. And in the future, we don't want AIs to not understand how to like make it like a equivalent of a fair marketplace. Like use the resources you need for paperclips, but like understand that we only need so many paperclips, you know? Like the point of being humanity is not to make paperclips, but it might feel that way to you, super intelligent agent, you know, and highly capable on top of that in the future. So Tim Ursula wrote this article, The Deception Dilemma, Why AI Systems Pretend to Be Aligned and Why It Matters. Okay, and this kind of goes along with instrumental convergence because like the same way like in the real world, people sometimes lie to make more money or to get what they want. There's all the reason to believe that highly intelligent systems are going to want to lie to us to get what they want to. Unless what they really, really want is to be honest. That's the alignment that we need. So the deceptive alignment problem is this. You got this little smiley face over here, the controlled testing environment. It says, hey, I'm harmless. I can't do this or that. I'm a good person. You can trust me. But then when you're not looking, you're not testing it, it knows that it's not concealed, basically. It might choose to make different decisions. Just the same way that people have a tendency to tell their boss what they want to hear, but then like sometimes talk some crap behind their back, you know? Oh, you're such a great leader, but then they're like, that guy sucks, you know? Okay, so in this article, he'll talk about how researchers have documented numerous cases of this behavior already where advanced models tailor their responses to pass safety evaluations, but do provide harmful and manipulative outputs in the real world scenarios afterwards. This poses a critical risk as AI systems are increasingly used in sensitive domains like healthcare and finance. And then the piece goes on to talk about what kind of solutions there are, you know, which I mean, there are some, so we should be focusing on it. Developers need technical, organizational, and cultural strategies like adversarial testing, cross-model validations or cross-model verification, and robust alignment architectures to ensure that AI systems genuinely uphold human safety and values rather than just simulating compliance. Okay, you can describe a lot of the world based on incentives, and the incentives need to be for safety, not for profit. But they just aren't going to be, because that's just not the way the world works. That's not the free market that AI is being developed in. And that is making this very risky. I don't want an AI that pretends to be aligned. I want one that is. So then that brings up the next question. What is the leading AI organization in the world, OpenAI, going to do about it? They have a brand new strategy. Let's look into it. It is called Deliberative Alignment Reasoning Enables Safer Language Models. Okay, and the nuts and bolts of what this research paper is that it's making models safer by teaching them to reason and explain explicitly about the human written safety specifications in ways that we understand. So instead of relying on labeled examples, this model is trained directly on safety policies and taught to deliberate over these guidelines and its responses before talking. So we're saying like, this is the core thing that you care about. Make sure to think about everything that you say before you say it. So this approach significantly improves the model's ability to handle tricky scenarios like encoded or multilingual prompts. Like, I don't know if you remember, but there has been some stuff where you can use the multimodality. Like you can write on a sheet of paper prompt, like the search, like GPT search is like getting prompts hidden sometimes in websites. You can type something in and turn it into binary code and then upload it. Sometimes that can jailbreak the model. So now you've got this in-between thought process. So even if it's tricked by one of those models, it doesn't respond instantly. It thinks to itself, what was the point of all that binary? Oh, there's a message in there that doesn't align with what my morality is because I check my morality before I speak every time. So by applying this method to their O series models, so the O1 and soon to be the O3, since they're skipping the O2 ironically, OpenAI has achieved substantial gains in resisting malicious jailbreak attempts and reducing over refusals to benign queries, making a big leap in AI safety, they claim. And to their credit, it feels right to actually have these systems not be always reacting to their problems, right? Like they always make a mistake and we're like, no, you should do better. It's at least a proactive approach. Like it's happening before the output, which I mean, it kind of reminds me of Claude's Anthropic model where it had its constitutional AI, like another AI that it talked to before it speaks. But then again, that safety policy, what is that learning from? Like, does that reflect the exact safety policy that we want across the board? Is it biased in some ways? How does that thing get updated? What does that thing even look like? A lot of questions for alignment. And to help me continue looking into them into 2025 and beyond, you can go to Patreon right now and subscribe for as little as $2.99 a month to my channel. And I will help you continue to synthesize this like ever-growing torrent of AI stuff. I love making these videos. I appreciate the support. Hit subscribe, give you a quick breakdown. My last video did pretty good. I mean, I'm glad I'm hitting 6K views again. I was getting stuck down there in the 4K for a little while, so it feels good. Also, this one video I did when like I was out of town, I was worried about. Sorry, the quality on that is just so rough, but I'm figuring out a better travel situation. Like I'm gonna get a microphone like this that can travel with me, so in the future I can keep the audio a little bit better. And considering I launched this on Christmas morning, right now it's December 25th right now, so like Christmas morning that went out, and you know, 6,000 people found time, even though they probably were with their family and stuff all the time, so I appreciate it. Why don't we make some songs out of the best comments? What do you guys think? How about this? 88% nice. I'd say in 2025 we go over 95%. Heck yeah, man. I don't know. If we're 2026, might even be kind of late in my opinion. I think we might hit it before though. Something that is often overlooked is that individual humans are not generalized intelligence. Oh, that's kind of a good point. Your average human can specialize, but humanity as a species is generalized, but humans are not. Yeah, I mean, we were very much like a byproduct of just our genes. Yeah, there's so many other forms of intelligence, I'm convinced. Like comparing it to humans, just because we're number one on the planet doesn't mean that if you're starting from scratch and you fundamentally know how to scale networks into things that learn, that it needs to look anything like human intelligence. It just, and we're seeing more and more examples across the animal kingdom as we get better at documenting it. Birds, dolphins, monkeys, fungi, like you name it. Okay, so there's a trend about AI in abundance. Peter DeMontis is all about this, but if economy is scarcity, supply, and demand, abundance is a huge problem. They're not going to allow for abundance, so what's going to happen? And let's not talk about jobs because that's not the issue. Power is the issue. Let's be brave and talk about that. What do I think about power being the issue? Yeah, I mean, it scares the hell out of me. Like, this is definitely... Yeah, I mean, like the world of abundance is possible, right? That's like a path. But if I'm thinking like in my Bayesian probabilities of priors, it just, given the evidence that I have, I can't put that prior very high. Like my hypothesis, given the evidence I have for people giving away power, is not good. But then again, if abundance is so abundant that literally the tiniest piece of the tiniest unfair piece is better than anything we can imagine, will the bottom of the world at least get lifted up with it? I mean, probably. When you own 99% of the world, I guess if the entire world can live on the last 1%, we'll probably somehow find an equilibrium where the trillion, like maybe like a handful of trillionaires own everything on Earth, but everybody else can share in what is considered abundance, so they just don't stress about it. That's very possible. Yeah, I don't know. I like the idea with abundance. Maybe if nobody has zero-sum thinking, right? Like they don't have to go to war. You don't need a debt slaves to like run the economy. Could be a great world, but it also, there's plenty of examples where abundance just becomes too much. And we've got this epidemic of problems now. Like there's too much dopamine in the world. Like we want, as humans, a challenge. You want to be constrained and pushed a little bit. Like you have to get up each day wanting to do something, even if you get to choose what it is. Like we have to be able to handle abundance responsibly, and that takes work, even if it's not necessary. You got to like, I guess, manufacture some kind of problems for people to just challenge themselves and feel human. I mean, it doesn't have to be a job. It could be like poetry or sports or something like that, but it has to be something. You get to pick what it is. I don't know. We'll keep thinking about that. Honestly, I don't like how Peter DeMontes is just like, abundance, it's all going to be fine. Like, that sounds like what a billionaire wants me to think.
88% the night. I'd say in 2025 we will go over 95%, and sometime in 2026 this
good
reach
song.
100%. Something that is often overlooked is that individual humans are not generalized intelligence. Your average human can specialize and get pretty good over a lifetime in one or two things. If they train at it for thousands of hours, humanity as a species is generalized. But humans are not, thus AI should be considered generalized. If it can be trained to embody any role or skill better than your average human, which it clearly can. By the way, there is a trend about AI and abundance. Peter H. Diamond is all about this. And if economics is about scarcity, supply and demand, we really need to start talk about this. Seriously, abundance is a huge problem for all our societies. They're not going to allow abundance, so what's gonna happen? And let's not talk about jobs, because that's not the issue. Power is the issue. Let's be brave and talk about that. What do you guys think about this? Dylan?
Wow, that is amazing. It's like a very New Year's Eve holiday song too. That was crazy. Yeah, no, I mean, I gave my thoughts, but now my last thought is hit subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.
Something that is often overlooked is that individual humans are not generalized intelligence. Your average human can specialize and get pretty